Do we have an MCU Disney Plus show that's a winner, or is it another dud? Find out my thoughts now. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I've got my review of Agatha All Along. I was granted the first 4 episodes to watch early. These are going to be my honest thoughts, spoiler-free on those episodes. Before I get into this, though, be sure to hit that like button. Comment down below your thoughts on the first 2 episodes, because as of this video dropping, the first 2 episodes are public. Subscribe and hit that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. If you want extra content, including live Q&As, and my reaction to every episode of Agatha All Along as the episodes drop, you can find that over on my Patreon. Your support over there truly does mean the world. So when it comes to Agatha All Along, this show's essentially a follow-up to WandaVision. In that series, WandaVision, Agatha Harkness was the big bad villain of the show, and this is set after the events of WandaVision. We hadn't seen Agatha since, and so she's got her own show now. Does it work? I'm gonna start with some of the pros. Something that impressed me immediately was that this show integrated some practical sets that really worked for me, and it reminded me a lot of when you're at Disney World or Universal Studios, pretty much any immersive theme park, all right? And you're in line, or the queue, as I like to call it, and you're walking through this queue and it feels like you're in this world. For example, at Disney World, if you go through the Tower of Terror queue or the Haunted Mansion queue, you feel like you're transported to this other time period. And there's this spooky feeling in the air when you're walking through the lines, builds up to the anticipation of the ride itself, right? I think that this show takes a lot of traits from some of those practical Disney queues or Universal queues, and it uses it in its sets. And we don't see that a lot nowadays in the MCU. And now, it wasn't every set, but there were a few moments where I was like, man, I really dig the practical nature of these set pieces. Now, there's a fair share of CGI heavy moments that I'll get into later, but for now, the practical effects really have worked for me. On top of that, you got Kathryn Hahn returning as Agatha, and to me, she's been an underrated comedic actor for years. She's in movies like Step Brothers back in 2008. She's in tons of like the most popular comedies from the 2000s and 2010s. Probably find Kathryn Hahn in like half of those at least. She always just plays a very funny comedic side character, and in this role, Agatha, it's a lot more dramatic for her. Yes, she's got her humorous lines, but Agatha as a character, fairly serious by nature. There are moments where she's being this goofy, sort of over-the-top witch, but this show explores some of her backstory that makes her more grounded than she was in WandaVision. And you know, this show is taking some of its time to set up Agatha and her past relationships with folks, romantic or otherwise, as well as her familial background. And so we're getting to see a different side of Agatha, which by default allows for Kathryn Hahn to give probably her most unique performance to date, because like I said, she's still got the quips and, you know, the one-liners that are there for comedic relief, but on top of that, she's giving more of a dramatic performance here, which is working for me. You've also got the addition of Aubrey Plaza in this. She's great here as well in the time we have with her. I thought she was going to be more of a prominent character, and it seems like we're headed the direction where she is going to dominate more of the screen time, but for now, through 4 episodes, she doesn't have as big of a role as I would have hoped for. What we have seen of her, though, she steals every scene she's in. The role that she plays, I don't want to delve too far into, but there are moments where a character commands the screen and has this threatening presence where you're like, oh my gosh, she's kind of badass right now. But there's also moments where a character just has this vulnerability to her and she opens up to Agatha. So their dynamic has really been a standout to me. On top of that, I think that Agatha All Along does a really good job of having darker moments. Oftentimes MCU shows or movies get sort of ragged on for being too PG, too family friendly. Well, with Agatha, it's by no means a Saw movie. But however, it does explore more of the horror elements, at least through these 4 episodes. Now, it's not in your face every moment, every scene, but it could be something as little as a jump scare that might catch you off guard, or some imagery of a really creepy demon, and I'm like, this is a bit darker than normal for Marvel Studios, and I appreciate them taking some risks in that field, because oftentimes they do play it safe and they hold back, you know, even if it's just a scene where there should be a bit more blood to kind of really hit home on a moment that's shocking in another MCU project. Here, they kind of go all in on things being dark, like dead bodies are shown, and you've got, you know, the creepy atmosphere that a show about witches should create. And so I can commend Agatha for having some genuinely unsettling imagery through the first 4 episodes. But perhaps the most shocking element of the show so far that stood out to me is the fact that it goes all in on some musical numbers. That's right. Agatha All Along capitalizes on the success of the song Agatha All Along, the hit from WandaVision, and you can't blame them. Agatha All Along was the smash hit song in the show, so why not have Agatha sing again? You'll see that in this show, and honestly, it's kind of a standout to me. At first, I was hesitant it was going to be like The Acolyte, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. They actually got some bars going, and I was like, all right, I can dig it. But through 4 episodes, Agatha All Along has been just fine. In fact, I do have a fair share of cons to discuss now. Like many MCU shows of old, through 4 episodes, it feels like we aren't really going anywhere. We get a lot of filler-type episodes where characters are tasked with what seems like a trivial challenge or trial, if you will, to get further along in their journey, and it's not really moving the plot along all that much. What really shocked me was that about halfway through the first episode, I had to stop and be like, oh no, are we about to just copy the formula of WandaVision where we've got every episode sort of parodying or being a take on another popular show? With WandaVision, it was strictly sitcoms, but in Agatha, are we going to have a true crime that's trying to take off True Detective? Are we going to have something like Breaking Bad? Are we going to get into the sci-fi realm? Like, I feared that it was just going to try and replicate what really worked for WandaVision, which was its stylistic uniqueness. And here I was like, oh, please don't try and just replicate that. I didn't want it to feel like a ripoff, and it kind of veered from that, so we're good. But for a while there, I was scared. Over the course of these 4 episodes, there is a main core group of characters or witches that are formed, and honestly, I felt like there's a lack of depth with a lot of these characters. Agatha being the outlier because she does have, you know, a backstory that we understand. They're starting to dive into it more. But these other characters, I don't really have a reason to care about them. And they're on this journey together, but a lot of the times these characters have really awkward exchanges because if you take a step back and look at the big picture, it's like everyone has their own motives for being on this journey. Everyone has their own plan. So they've personally sort of set their mind on their goal, and it seems like everyone's just trying to screw each other over, or that everyone has their own motive, like I said, and so no one's really working together. There's not much chemistry among this group, and because of that, it makes for some real awkward exchanges. It almost feels like every conversation that a character has in this Coven of Witches is forced, and it's like no one really likes each other. We're all just here because we have to be, and so because of that, it didn't really make anyone particularly stand out as a likable character. It's just like everyone's trying to screw the other person over, so why should I care? We also have a character whose name is unknown, played by Joe Locke, and I feel like the series has put such an emphasis on his identity that it's going to be this huge pivotal reveal when it happens, right? Who is this kid? But in reality, if you've been following along the production of the show on Twitter or just seen the trailers, it seems fairly obvious who they're hinting that this character is going to be. I'm not going to say it for the sake of spoilers, but I do feel like the show is going to have this moment like Ep 7 where they're like, this is who this person is, and oh my gosh, our minds are blown. And in a way, it does feel like the series thinks it's smarter than it actually is, because I guarantee most people watching the show who've been following along with the trailers and marketing have a pretty good inkling as to who this is going to be. It's been like all but confirmed in marketing, and so it's strange that the series is putting such an emphasis on this guy's identity because it does, again, seem fairly obvious. Perhaps my biggest issue with Agatha All Along is there are some clashing tones, and it's constant. We'll have a scene where a character makes a joke about TikTok or references something super modern, and it's kind of cringe, right? And then the next scene will be characters hallucinating, seeing dead bodies, or reliving traumatic experiences that formed them and scarred them for life. And I'm like, whoa, let's kind of take a step back and chill. Like, it kind of got jarring at a certain point where the humor would miss the mark, and then boom, we have this dark scene or a really intense scene with a demon. It borderline felt inappropriate at times. I was like, this just doesn't feel right. And having seen the first 4 episodes, I do fear that this show might just be headed into the unknown, like a lot of the MCU Disney Plus shows, where you kind of got this meandering journey for a couple episodes, and it all culminates in a rushed finale that still leaves us with lots of questions and doesn't feel like it serves a purpose in the overall cinematic universe, which just frustrates me. You would think Marvel would have learned their lesson with TV shows by now, but it seems like Agatha is on course to be yet another one of those forgettable shows that the MCU drops and no one talks about after it ends. I think it's a huge missed opportunity that this series didn't come out closer to the release of WandaVision. Obviously, they couldn't have dropped it the same year, but 2022, maybe even early 2023 would have been a lot more ideal because they could capitalize off the hype train that WandaVision was. When that series came out, mind you, it was the first MCU Disney Plus show, and it was the first MCU content since Far From Home in the summer of 2019. It was 2021 when the series came out, so we almost had what felt like a 2-year gap with a pandemic in there. People were going crazy for WandaVision, and the week-to-week hype was unreal, the theorizing, the predictions, the endless discourse, it was all there. Now we have Agatha All Along 3 years later, and it's crazy to see how far things have fallen for MCU television series. It seems like a lot of the general audience is burnt out on the MCU, specifically with TV shows. And so it's wild to think that if this show had come out, say in 2022, how differently it could have been received. Because I do think this show is trying to latch on to the WandaVision era with certain scenes taking place in eras from WandaVision, it paying homage to certain references that were going around online during the WandaVision era. And all in all, it's trying to latch onto WandaVision when it needs to really create its own identity as a show. And I fear that it might not end up doing that, and it could just be an attempt at recapturing the WandaVision hype, and I don't know if it's going to be there for this show because it seems a bit too little too late. So is Agatha All Along outright bad? No. It's decent at best, but that shouldn't be the standard when it comes to a Marvel Studios television show. But yeah, those are my honest thoughts on Agatha All Along so far. Let me know yours in the comments down below and hit that like button. Subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified for all my future videos. And if you want to watch Agatha All Along with me, you can do so on my Patreon. I will have reactions to every episode of the series as they drop. But that's going to do it. Thank you guys as always for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.